The ability to have somebody who is kind of epitomizes what you think your country stands for has always been a major ambition.
After years of keeping her mum's secrets locked away, Princess Anne finally dropped a truth bomb about Kate Middleton, and it left Prince William and King Charles completely stunned. Most people thought they had the royal future all figured out. First King Charles would reign, then Prince William would take over. Nice and neat, all very proper and predictable. That's how it was always meant to be. But one foggy night inside Buckingham Palace, something happened that turned all of that upside down. And hardly anyone outside the palace had a clue. It all started with Princess Anne. She's always been the reliable one. Shows up, keeps her head down, doesn't go chasing headlines. People respect her for that. They trust her. But Anne had been carrying something big, something that had weighed on her for years. It wasn't something she asked for, but she couldn't ignore it anymore. It was a secret, one passed to her by Queen Elizabeth II before she passed. A private message, written carefully and handed over only to Anne. No staff knew. It wasn't shared with the public. It was meant for Anne and Anne alone, until the time was right. And now, finally, that time had come. So, what did the letter say? And why did it shake the royals to their core? Well, here's the shocker. The Queen's message didn't mention Charles. It didn't even talk about William. Instead, it focused on someone no one expected. Someone the Queen believed could actually save the monarchy's future. That someone was Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The palace was quiet that night, wrapped in fog outside and wrapped in tension inside. Anne, calm but determined, decided it was finally time to speak up. She asked King Charles and Prince William to meet her. No assistants, no royal aides, just the three of them. They gathered in an old, serious-looking room. Heavy curtains, dark wood, royal portraits staring down at them. Anne didn't make a big speech. She just took out the letter, soft and worn from being held so many times, and placed it gently on the table. Charles picked it up first, hands trembling just a bit. William leaned in, eyes narrowing as he read every single word. Twice. Nobody said a word. The only sound was the ticking of the mantel clock. Outside, London slept on, totally unaware of the storm quietly brewing inside the palace. The Queen's words were clear. She didn't just see Catherine as a future queen consort, she saw her as the actual future of the monarchy. The crown's survival, she wrote, wouldn't depend on a king this time. It would rest with a woman the public already adored, someone who had earned their trust, not just inherited a title. Charles was the first to react, finally breaking the silence. "This isn't how it's done," he said quietly, almost talking to himself. He looked older somehow, weighed down. William still hadn't spoken. He just stared at the letter, his hands tightening into fists and then loosening again, like he was trying to hold something in. Anne didn't push. She wasn't there to argue. She was there because her mother had trusted her with this moment, and because Anne, deep down, believed it too. Catherine wasn't just ticking royal boxes. She was making people believe in the whole thing again. Eventually, William finally spoke, his voice soft and unsure. "Why didn't she tell us sooner?" Anne gave him a small, sad smile. "Maybe she didn't think you were ready." The three of them sat there in silence, the weight of what came next hanging heavy in the room. Whatever decision they made from here on out, it would change everything. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the palace, Catherine sat by a window with a half-finished cup of tea beside her. She'd just tucked George, Charlotte, and Louis into bed and was staring out at the fog. She felt oddly restless, though she didn't know why. She had no idea that just above her, in a quiet, shadowed room, her life, and the fate of the royal family, was being rewritten. She'd never gone looking for power. All she'd ever wanted was to do the job right, with grace, with kindness, and with love for her family. She smiled when she was supposed to, listened when it was time, and protected her children like a lioness. And now, without even knowing it, she might just be the future of the crown. The queen had seen it, and believed it with her whole heart. She knew this was exactly what the future needed. Back in that quiet, shadowy room, the letter still sat between them like it was alive, humming with tension. Anne finally stood, brushing her skirt smooth, not waiting for Charles or William to nod in agreement. She didn't need their approval. She already knew what their mother would have wanted. The truth spoken out loud, the risk taken. "Whatever we decide," Anne said gently, "the world is moving. We either move with it or get left behind." No one replied. But in that thick silence, something began to grow. Slowly, quietly, like the very first sliver of morning light sneaking over the horizon. The monarchy, the one everyone thought they knew, had already started shifting. Not with trumpets or a televised speech, but with one sleepless night, a whispered truth, and a woman who didn't even realize she was about to step straight into history. And what came next? Well, it's not what anyone expected. So don't blink. Morning crept over London, gray and heavy. As the first light rolled across the city, Buckingham Palace was already different. Deep inside its thick stone walls, a private gathering of senior royals and hand-picked advisors was about to kick off. It had been called together quickly, but nothing about it felt ordinary. There was a buzz in the air, quiet, tense, and full of questions no one dared to ask out loud. Princess Anne arrived first. She didn't look like someone about to flip the royal script. She looked like a commander on one last mission. In her hand, she carried a plain leather folder, the kind of thing that wouldn't grab attention, except inside it was a letter powerful enough to shake the very foundations of the crown. Then came King Charles. Calm on the surface, as always, but the lines on his face, the stiffness in his shoulders, told a different story. And finally, Prince William stepped in, cool and collected, looking every bit the heir. But there was something sharp behind his eyes. Fire, conflict, worry. He knew this wasn't just another meeting. This was the one that could change everything. Anne didn't waste a moment. She placed the folder on the big polished table and said in a voice that didn't leave room for debate, "This is Her Majesty's final wish. Not mine, not Charles's, not William's, hers." Everyone leaned in. The Queen's neat handwriting stared up at them, clear and steady. And her message? It couldn't have been more direct. Catherine, not born royal, but shaped by strength and grace, was the future. This wasn't about blood anymore. It was about heart, about who could carry the monarchy into the next chapter and actually make people believe in it again. The Queen hadn't tried to rewrite the rule book or officially change the line of succession. She knew that would be a legal nightmare. But what she had done was state her hopes, plainly and boldly. Catherine wasn't just meant to stand beside the next king. The Queen saw her as a queen in her own right. That set the room on fire. Whispers flew. Faces turned pale. Some looked shocked, others furious. Then Charles snapped. His hands slammed the table as he shouted, "This is madness! I thought last night was some kind of joke. You can't just change the line of succession." Anne didn't flinch. She met his eyes, calm and steady. Mother wasn't confused. She was sure. This was no mistake. Then William finally broke his silence. His voice was low, rough around the edges. "And what about me?" he asked. "What happens to everything I was raised to be?" Anne's tone softened. "You're still essential. You're still needed. But if the monarchy is going to survive, it has to change. Mum saw that. She wanted us to see it too." William dropped his gaze, fists clenching in his lap. It stung. It felt like being pushed aside. But deep down, he knew. He'd seen Catherine weather storms that would have knocked him flat. He'd watched how effortlessly the people connected with her, how they loved her not because she tried to be perfect, but because she never pretended to be. She didn't chase the spotlight. It found her. And somehow, she never let it burn her. Maybe, he thought quietly, she'd been the real queen all along. Outside the palace, the world spun on as if nothing had happened. No breaking news, no royal statements. But behind those gilded gates, something had shifted. Catherine, completely unaware of the drama unfolding upstairs, just kept doing what she always did, visiting hospitals, holding grieving hands, fighting to improve mental health care. Every smile, every thoughtful word stitched her deeper into the future the Queen had once imagined. But inside Buckingham Palace, pressure was building. Rumors began to trickle out. Headlines hinted at secret meetings. Whispers of royal drama swirled through the press. And through it all, Anne stood tall, calm, steady, and unshakable, holding the line for the Queen's final wish. She knew there was no turning back now. It was only a matter of time before the whole world caught on to the truth. For hundreds of years, Buckingham Palace had been the rock-solid symbol of tradition, unshakable and untouchable. But after Queen Elizabeth passed away, tiny cracks started to appear. Just moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. King Charles III had the crown now, but it just didn't sit on his head the way it did hers. His reign was expected, sure, but it wasn't exactly embraced. People still respected the monarchy, but many weren't sure if they still loved it. Charles, with all his strong opinions and passions, found it tough to be the calm, steady figure his mother had been. His past left scars, his messy divorce, the long, complicated journey with Camilla, and none of it had quite healed in the public's eye. The crown shone bright, but the man wearing it often seemed to stumble. Prince William, on the other hand, carried a different kind of weight. On paper, he was the future, a young, relatable royal, but every step he took was under a microscope. Every mistake was blown way out of proportion. Even his marriage to Catherine, a real bright spot for the family, was a double-edged sword. The more people adored her, the harder it was for William to step out from her shadow. Then there was Harry, throwing accusations from across the Atlantic, stirring up wounds that hadn't even started to heal. William felt the whole monarchy teetering on shaky ground. He could feel it every single day. Right after the Queen's death, the nation had briefly come together in grief, but that unity didn't last long. Polls showed younger generations questioning whether the monarchy even mattered anymore. In places like Australia and the Caribbean, calls to cut ties with the crown grew louder by the day. The royal family could feel it. The tide was turning. The old loyalty was slipping away, and tradition alone wouldn't keep them afloat anymore. They had to prove their worth all over again. Deep down, they all knew no amount of press conferences or fancy PR campaigns could save them now. What they needed was someone real, someone the people could believe in, someone like Catherine. And somehow, Queen Elizabeth had seen this coming long before anyone else noticed the cracks. She made her choice quietly, without fuss or fanfare, trusting that when the time came, those who truly cared about the monarchy would follow her lead. She'd seen the future, and it had Catherine's face, not because of birthright, but because of hope. And that's where things get really interesting. Keep watching to find out what happened next. But even after this bombshell from Anne, another worry gnawed at the family. People just weren't supporting them the way they used to. King Charles found no peace. Night after night, he stayed awake, buried in old history books, searching for clues from kings who had ruled through chaos before him. William carried his fears differently, a heavy stone sitting deep in his chest, especially whenever he looked into his children's bright, trusting eyes. He wanted to believe he was preparing them for a future of honor and service. But what if that future never came? Catherine, though, faced the moment in her own way. Quiet, calm, accepting. She saw the world changing around her, moving forward whether the palace was ready or not. It was her steady calm, her resilience, her total lack of hunger for power that made her the one no one expected, but maybe exactly the one the crown needed. She never chased the crown, and maybe that was exactly why it was now chasing her. From the outside, the monarchy's polished image stayed perfectly intact. Elegant ceremonies, fancy dinners, and glossy royal photos. But underneath it all, something unexpected was stirring. A slow-burning fault line was building pressure, threatening to crack the very foundations of the palace. At the heart of it was a truth no one dared to say out loud. The perfect image of the monarchy was weaker than anyone wanted to admit. And now the House of Windsor, built over centuries, stood on the edge. The world was watching, holding its breath. Would it crumble, or would it rise again? Not by bloodlines or royal laws, but by the quiet strength of a woman who never asked for a crown, and might just wear it better than anyone before her. Let's dive in and find out how. As the old saying goes, nothing stays hidden under the sun forever. Eventually, the Queen's secret wish reached ears beyond Buckingham Palace, thanks to a few palace maids who had been quietly watching and overhearing the drama unfold inside. But not everyone was on board with the Queen's decision. Some argued it was wrong for Catherine to take the lead while her husband, the rightful heir, was still around. They pointed out that Catherine spent most of her time caring for their children and lacked political experience. On the flip side, another group stood firmly behind the Queen's wishes, trusting that she knew exactly what was best. This sparked a fierce debate, leading many to dig deeper into Catherine's life, and what they uncovered might just shock you. When they started investigating, they found out Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. She didn't grow up in castles or wear crowns, but her family lived comfortably and valued hard work. Her dad, Michael Middleton, was a flight dispatcher, and her mom, Carol, had once been a flight attendant. On her father's side, the family had deep roots in British society, even hosting royals back in the early 1900s. On her mother's side, the family came from coal miners, giving Catherine a rare blend of tradition and humility. When Catherine was just 2, her family moved to Amman, Jordan, where her dad worked for British Airways. There, she went to an English-speaking nursery school, learning early on how to adapt to new cultures. By 1986, they returned to England and settled in Berkshire. At 4 years old, Catherine was enrolled at St. Andrew's School. She quickly showed signs of independence and maturity. Later, she began part-time boarding, learning to look after herself at a young age. In 1987, something important happened. Catherine's mom, Carol, started a mail-order party supplies business called Party Pieces. What began as a small venture soon grew into a thriving company, which gave Catherine and her siblings access to excellent education. More importantly, it taught Catherine patience, resilience, and the value of building something meaningful from scratch. By 1995, the family moved to Bucklebury, a quiet village surrounded by nature. Catherine switched schools and eventually enrolled at Marlborough College. There, she wasn't just another student. She stood out as a leader, especially as captain of the girls' field hockey team. During this time, Catherine also completed the demanding Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, showing her determination, hard work, and humility. Around then, she underwent minor surgery to remove a lump from her head, but quietly returned to her studies without fuss. After finishing school, Catherine faced a big choice. She had been accepted to the University of Edinburgh, but decided to take a gap year first, to explore and grow. She traveled to Florence, studying art at the British Institute, then volunteered in Chile through Raleigh International, working on community projects and trekking rugged landscapes. She even worked as a deckhand at the busy port of Southampton, never shying away from hard, unglamorous work. Eventually, she enrolled at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, starting out studying psychology before switching to art history. Catherine joined the Lumsden Club, organizing charity events and helping local communities. To help cover expenses, she took a part-time job as a waitress, showing again she wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. And it was at St. Andrews that something life-changing happened. Catherine met Prince William. They became close friends, bonded by a shared love of art history. By 2002, their friendship blossomed into a full-blown romance. They moved in together with friends, quietly building a life while keeping their relationship low-key to avoid the public eye. But by 2004, the world caught on after paparazzi snapped photos of them vacationing in Switzerland. Their path wasn't smooth. 2007 brought a rough patch when Kate and Prince William briefly broke up under intense media pressure. Catherine later admitted it was a painful time, but it ultimately made her stronger. She handled the split with quiet dignity and emerged more confident. After a few months apart, they reunited, their bond even stronger. Throughout their long courtship, Catherine faced relentless public scrutiny. Tabloids cruelly dubbed her Weighty Katie, mocking her patience. Yet she never lashed out. Instead, she stayed calm, gracious, and focused on carving her own path. Then, in November 2010, they announced their engagement, and Catherine began preparing for royal life. She went back to using her full name officially, and on April 29, 2011, she married Prince William in a ceremony watched by millions worldwide. As the Duchess of Cambridge, she stepped into a life of duty and public service. Even with the heavy royal expectations, Catherine remained true to herself, grounded, kind, and quietly strong. In the years that followed, she and William became the picture of a modern royal couple. Together, they welcomed 3 children: Prince George in 2013, Princess Charlotte in 2015, and Prince Louis in 2018. Each child brought joy not only to the royal family, but to the world. Through it all, Catherine balanced motherhood, royal duties, and charity work with grace. Her journey showed that becoming royal wasn't about wearing crowns, but about heart, hard work, and staying authentic. But that wasn't all. As Catherine's role in the royal family grew, she began to shine not only as a figure of grace, but as a passionate force for good. She didn't just appear at events out of tradition. She fully immersed herself in causes close to her heart. Her charity work became a defining part of her identity, proving she'd found the perfect balance between royal duty and personal compassion. One of her most touching acts happened quietly in 2018. Without seeking any attention, Catherine donated 7 inches of her hair to the Little Princess Trust, a charity making wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. Inspired by her hairdresser Joey Wheeler, she made this decision privately, a reminder that the most heartfelt kindness often happens out of the spotlight. It was a simple but powerful gesture, echoing the quiet generosity she had shown for years. Many assumed all her kindness was for the cameras, but it wasn't. Long before marrying Prince William, Catherine was already deeply involved in charity. In 2007, she organized a photography exhibition to raise funds for UNICEF, and later hosted a charity roller disco that raised £100,000 for the Oxford Children's Hospital and mental health causes. Her early visits to hospices and work with sick children left a lasting mark, shaping her future as a royal devoted to children and mental health. After becoming Duchess of Cambridge, Catherine's commitment only grew stronger. Just months after their wedding, she and William set up a charitable gift fund, refusing wedding presents and instead directing support to 26 organizations. When these facts came to light, some of Catherine's harshest critics began to admire her. But the story was far from over. The next big question on everyone's mind, especially royal watchers, was how William would feel seeing his wife step into a role he had fought so hard to claim for himself. William faced his own deep struggle. The revelations about Catherine left a quiet wound he wasn't sure how to heal. He loved her fiercely and admired her strength and kindness more than words could say. Yet knowing that even his grandmother had seen Catherine, and not him, as the future of the monarchy, gnawed away at his confidence. He began to question everything. Was he enough? Had he been too cautious, too reserved, weighed down by the impossible expectations he'd carried since childhood? He looked at Catherine differently now, not with resentment, but with awe and a kind of fearful respect. She hadn't asked for any of this. She simply stayed true to herself, and somehow that was enough to win not just the heart of a nation, but the faith of a queen who had witnessed generations of monarchs. Good evening, Your Majesty, and welcome, Dominique. In all this upheaval, one thing stood out clearly: Catherine's response. Many expected her to simply say yes or no to the Queen's wish. But when asked if she was ready to take on such a heavy responsibility, her answer shocked even King Charles and William. She calmly and firmly stated that while many desire to lead the monarchy, every wife also wants to keep peace within her family. Because of this, she needed time to think it over. So although Catherine has yet to give a clear answer, one thing is certain. The Queen made the right choice by selecting someone who could balance the crown's heavy demands with the delicate needs of the royal family. Now, what do you think about Catherine's response? How do you interpret King Charles's and William's reactions? Most importantly, what's your take on the Queen's decision? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click on the video on your screen next. You're going to love it.